Hey, my name is Patrick White.
Bob Jones.
I'm on the Stockbridge Select Board,
And I am on the Lee Select Board.
and we're here today to talk a little bit about the Lee action against Monsanto.
Patrick, thank you for asking me to be here. I really appreciate it. You know, there have been some reports lately, some articles that are really quite misleading, and I really appreciate the opportunity to get together with you and give folks the facts. It's really important that people understand what is actually happening. This has been going on for years, for over a decade, and we're getting close to hopefully getting close to resolving this issue. You've been working on this for quite some time, as have I, and scores, hundreds of other people working to try to better the supposed cleanup of the river and not to have a toxic waste dump in the Berkshires.
And we're actually sitting in a backdrop of the Houstonic River. As far as this specific action is concerned, you've got two great lawyers who are advising the town. You've got Attorney Bonifaz, and you have Jeremiah Pollard, who's town council, one of the most respected town councils in the Berkshires, I can say.
Absolutely, a great guy. He really knows his business. Jeremiah is a friend, a professional, and also Cristobal Bonifaz, who has been at this a very long time and has had successful cases against Enron in the Amazon. This guy really knows what he's doing, and we are very, very grateful for his participation in our efforts.
That's right. He was Chevron. He also even sued Monsanto once, right?
Oh yes, absolutely. No, so he's a good guy to have on your side.
So we're going to actually read some of the excerpts from this filing. It'll take a minute or two, and Bob's going to start.
Okay, here it is. Buckle up your seatbelts. The tort of intentional infliction of harm encapsulates a basic moral principle that if you injure someone intentionally and without just cause or excuse, then you should be liable for the commission of a tort in addition to any crime you might commit. In 1968, Monsanto discovered that the product would never be carried by rivers to the Atlantic, but instead will become permanently embedded in the sediments of rivers, harming humans and the environment. Monsanto continued marketing the most profitable use of the product to GE with a critical caveat. Monsanto told GE unequivocally that the product would harm humans, the environment, and that GE could continue buying the toxic product only if it agreed to reimburse Monsanto for any claims filed against Monsanto.
The actions of Monsanto in not removing the product from the market when it became a certainty the product would harm humans and the environment, and the actions of GE in continue to profit from use of the product, even if it caused harm to humans and the environment, was an intentional act that could not be justified in any society. Intentional harm to humans is a crime whether or not prosecutors decide to prosecute or not, to prosecute the actors of that intentional harm.
Now, the town of Lee is seeking, on behalf of its residents, adequate compensatory and punitive damages to be determined by a jury for the catastrophic disaster Monsanto and GE have caused to Lee.
The basis for GE's possible action against Monsanto was Lee's assumption that GE did not know that in 1968 Monsanto learned through a negligent event, Monsanto's words, that PCBs in the Hudson-Houstonic River did not flow with water currents to the Atlantic.
And Monsanto knew as far back as the 1930s that PCBs were toxic to human beings and the environment. These defendants have caused tortuous injury by acts of omissions in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, including the improper, intentional, reckless, and wrongful use, distribution, pollution, sale of PCBs in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, and these defendants have caused tortuous injury in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts by acts or omissions outside the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, where the defendants have regularly done and solicited business in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts.
This next section is the most shocking to me. Beginning in the 1930s, Monsanto commissioned hundreds of toxicological tests of PCBs from leading institutions such as the Harvard School of Public Health and the Kettering Institute of the University of Cincinnati. Those tests disclosed that PCBs, like all industrial chemicals, were capable of causing systemic toxicity at high doses. And by experimental work on animals shows that prolonged exposure to aerochlor, the name for these PCB vapors, evolved at high temperatures or by repeated oral ingestion will lead to systemic toxic effects. The company provided the following warning. The vapors emitted by aerochlor 1248 heated to elevated temperatures are injurious to the liver on prolonged exposure and should not be breathed. The company warned if these precautions are neglected, acne may develop and excessive exposure may cause liver damage.
As the unique functional characteristics of these materials became more fully understood, additional uses were found. Their non-flammability made them an excellent choice for high-pressure hydraulic applications associated with high risk of fire such as die casting and steel production. Their thermal stability and non-flammability were valuable in heat transfer systems. In 1970, in response to the growing information regarding PCB's environmental presence, Monsanto began to voluntarily phase out the sale of PCBs for various applications. Sales of PCBs for use as plasticizers were phased out as of August 1970.
The United States Navy rejected in 1956 a PCB marketed by Monsanto for usage as oil in the antenna of nuclear submarines as a toxic product in spite of Monsanto's protestations. Monsanto had an internal dispute in 1957 as to whether Monsanto should recommend the use of aerochlor in agricultural products as an insecticide additive without approval of the US FDA. Wow.
Well, it gets better, or actually it gets worse. Monsanto discussed internally on March 6, 1969, the actions it could take in response to the knowledge spreading around the world that aerochlors were an uncontrollable pollutant spreading widely by air and water.
The warning sent to 661 customers diluted the issue by incorporating a Chemical Week article that was written at the behest of the company, listing possible future regulatory work by each state and stating that the warning was issued because of recent published articles implying that was all Monsanto knew about PCB's toxicity and its impact on humans, fish, birds, and the environment.
There it is. Monsanto's plasticizer group sent the letter dated February 27, 1970, warning of contamination in the environment to 661 users of aerochlors, 1,254 and 1,260 as plasticizers. Monsanto's plasticizer group failed to notify GE's transformer division of any possible problem with environmental contamination of the river. Monsanto's letter suggested to its 661 plasticizer customers that, quote, that all possible care should be taken in the application, processing, and effluent disposal of these products to prevent environmental contamination.
And when we say aerochlor, we're referring to the brand name of the PCBs marketed by the company. Monsanto never told GE or any other of the 661 plasticizers customers that the chemical dumping PCBs into a river resulted in permanent PCB contamination of the rivers due to the unique properties of PCBs. Monsanto established in 1969 an aerochlor ad hoc committee to set business objectives for the company. Objectives agreed to by the committee. Submit recommendations for action which will: 1. Permit sales and profits of PCBs and terephenyls. 2. Permit continued development of uses and sales. 3. Protect the image of the organic division in the corporation.
Monsanto sold PCBs to GE from 1930 to 1977 for use in electrical transformers assembled and or serviced by GE in Pittsfield, Massachusetts. Monsanto knew that the PCBs used in the electrical transformers lost electrical properties after use and had to be discarded. Monsanto never took back used PCBs for proper disposal. Monsanto knew that GE's facility for refurbishing transformers was located in Pittsfield, adjacent to the Housatonic River. Monsanto knew or should have known, that GE disposed of used PCBs by dumping them into the Housatonic River or by burying them in landfills created by GE in western Massachusetts. GE dumped into the Housatonic or buried in landfills, get this, more than 1.5 million pounds of PCBs between 1930 and 1979, according to Ed Bates of GE. Monsanto sold General Electric between 1972 and 1977 more than 59 million pounds of PCBs.
Ed Bates of GE has estimated that GE dumped 1.5 million pounds of PCBs into the river between 1930 and 1979. Estimated in a 2020 publication that the river contained 600,000 pounds of PCBs. EPA, in letter to Council in 22, estimates that GE will remove 50.5 tons, about 100,000 pounds, of PCBs from the river under the order. Thus, the poundage of PCBs that will be left on the river after GE satisfies the requirements ranges from 500,000 to 1.3 million pounds, which are damaging to Lee and its residents. Regardless, whether PCBs in the river amount to 1.5 million or 600,000 pounds, the poundage to be removed from the river is merely 100,000 pounds.
And folks, you're going to love this one. Monsanto kept track of 608 cancer deaths of its PCB exposed employees between 1949 and the 1970s. This remarkable tabulation is ample proof that Monsanto had concerns of cancers caused by PCB exposure.
You know, Bob, anybody who has lived here a lifetime like we have, we know so many families that have been impacted by cancer who lived along that river. And I think that the pursuit of justice here is admirable. I don't say this about a lot of people, but in my 5 years on the select board, this is the one select board member I have learned more from than anyone else. This guy is a hero, and he should be celebrated as one. And I am just saying thank you so much on behalf of the friends I know who have died from cancer caused by what was dumped in that river behind us, that you have their backs, and you have the backs of the people who are living here now and are going to have to live through this cleanup. Thank you, Bob.
Well, Patrick, thank you, and it's reciprocated. You were the one person, the one select board member, actually, of all the 5 towns involved, other than the 2 present, my colleagues presently, who actually took the time to look into this. These excerpts that we've been reciting. These are not opinions. This is not politics. These are facts. These are damning facts of criminal conspiracy against GE and Monsanto. And so I want to thank you. You're the only one that I know who's taken the time to go through 1,700 pages and extracting these facts for our friends and neighbors.
I actually ran out of a highlighter and had to get a second pen. There were so many of them. All right. Thanks, guys.
Thanks so much, and thank you. We can do this.
Yeah.
Thank you.